Hello YouTubers, Evan here for grips.com, and today we're going to be playing a little session on William Hill, which is part of the iPoker network. Going to be playing 3 tables, 25, 50 pound, no limit, and we're going to be playing 2 tables of 6 max, 1 table of 4 max, 1 table is going to be a shallow table, and the other 2 tables are going to be full 100 big blind tables. So as you can see, I also have a notepad open. That's if any interesting hands come up, and I'd like to take notes on my opponents as to what they did. Yeah, that's what it's for. So I have a straight, and I'm probably going to try to get a little value from it, although not too much, given that it'd be hard for someone to call with worse. So here, when this guy stabs, I'm just going to call. I don't really think there's any value in raising because he's not going to call my re-raise with like an 8 or a 10 or anything like that. So calling in that spot is definitely the best play, even though I wound up with a straight. I've been getting a lot of questions about 6 max ranges. A lot of players say that they do pretty well in the 9-handed and 10-handed games, but that they experience difficulty when transitioning to 6 max. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about opening ranges for these games so that you can make the proper adjustments to play that little bit looser that you need to play for 6 max without going overboard. Because a lot of people tend to over adjust when they get into a 6 max situation, feeling that they need to play like all the hands, and that's not what you have to do. So let's go ahead and just get this going in the notepad. We're going to have our 6 positions. Under the gun plus 1, which is also known as the hijack. Then we'll have the cutoff, button, small blind, and I guess we don't really need to include the big blind because well, we're not going to be opening from there. We're just going to be isolating. So I guess I will go with tighter ranges, since when most people transition to 6 max, they don't want to experience too much variance and get put into too many tough spots. So for under the gun, in terms of offsuit hands, you definitely want to be opening ace queen plus. So that's ace queen and ace king. You would want to open 6s plus. And for suited connectors, I mean, you don't have to go that wide. I would definitely be opening jack queen suited plus, and that would be for the tight range. Now for optional opening hands, you could go with an ace jack off plus, you could go with king queen plus, you could go with all pairs, and you could open a 5-4 suited plus. In terms of gappers, I think the loosest you should probably go is a 10-8 suited plus. So that's, you know, jack 9 suited, queen 10 suited, king jack suited, all that stuff. And with this range, you can definitely open all suited paint. The times that you would want to incorporate a looser range for opening is when either A, fishes in the big blind, or you have a bunch of tight players behind who aren't going to be flatting your open or re-raising your open that much or putting you in any tough spots. When your opponents are all just going to be playing a very tight range, that means that your races are going to be going through more often than not, and therefore you'll be isolating the players in the blinds more often, and therefore getting to play your pots in position, which is, as you guys should know definitely by now, one of your main goals. Okay, once you get to the hijack, You definitely want to be opening ace jack and better. For pairs, I mean, I think you should just open all of them at this point. Even if you're playing a tight range, you should still be opening all pairs from this position. And for suited connectors, 7-8 suited plus is definitely fine. And then for optionals, probably ace-10 off. Any suited ace is fine. And same suited connectors and suited gappers will go as low as 5-7 suited plus. It's probably fine. And shit, I just timed out. I definitely would have been c-betting these jacks, but given that I timed out, I guess I'll just check raise cutoff. The guy could have flopped a set, but he could also have like a 9-10. He could have an 8-7, 6-7, 9-7, which in those cases I have the best hand and I'm like a 60-40 favorite. And I don't mind getting all the money in there. Now the 9 pairing is not great for me because if he has a 9 I'm beat, but he could still have those straight draw hands at 8-7, 6-7, in which case I still have the best hand. And I'm getting a really good price on the pot that I definitely want to just continue with this hand and go all in. I think the only cards that I don't continue on are a 5, a 7, and a 10. It would be a close decision for sure. With the straight draw, I could c-bet, but I don't want to get check raised off my hand. And with Dan being relatively short stacked, there's a very high possibility that he's going to be check raising me. So I'd rather check back and give myself a chance to realize my draw. Here, the price isn't fantastic, but there are definitely implied odds. Plus, there's the chance that, you know, a 6 or 7 rolls off and my opponent checks the river, in which case I can steal the pot. So I have a couple of ways to win. And once he checks, I'm just going to fire nice and big and hope that he was just stabbing because the flop got checked through, not because he had a jack. Nice thing. And we see there him having ace jack. If I had c-bet the flop, I was probably going to get check raised. So that plan of checking back to avoid a check raise definitely was a good one. And the bet on the river wasn't mandatory. I could have definitely just checked back and played my odds on the turn, and then you know, I pretty much played the hand perfectly. Now, if I knew more about the player before the hand, I could have made a better decision as to whether or not betting the river was best or checking back would be a preferred option. But I haven't played on Will Hill for probably like 3 or 4 months, so I definitely don't know anything about these players. Re-raise me, buddy. Hit me with a re-raise. I ain't going nowhere. Fire a c-bet. If he calls with a small pair of suited connector, I'll take it down. If he has Broadway, he'll continue. And I would be firing 1 bullet there and then shutting down. Okay, cutoff. You can open ace-9 off and up, all pairs, all suited connectors, all Broadway hands. And then for optional hands, you could go 7-8 offsuit and up. Oh yeah, mandatory would be all suited aces as well. And for gappers, you know, go as low as you want, 3-5 suited plus. Definitely not mandatory though. For mandatory gappers, if you want to play the tight range, just stick with probably a 10-8 suited plus is fine. So I guess I'll throw that in there as well. Hopefully this guy sits back in or someone joins the game. I don't mind playing heads up, but I'm trying to show you guys how to play short-handed ring games, so playing heads up is not the ideal for this video. And I seem to have had a lot of bad luck with that recently, that the games just break. I guess that's just a factor of the games being four-handed and that they're going to break fairly often, especially at lower stakes. Everyone's too short behind me to really want to open the 6-9 suited. If we were deeper and these players in the blinds were weak, then it's totally fine to be opening a hand like that. But, you know, you got to just be looking ahead and seeing how you think the hand's going to develop. What the chances are you're going to be having position, what the chances are that you're going to be playing a heads-up pot versus a multi-way pot. These factors are very important in helping you determine the optimal way to play your hand, whether a hand is worth playing at all. So in the shallow game, I'm going to be opening tighter than I am in the deeper games due to the fact that there are lower implied odds when people have less money behind. And in those situations, the value of a suited connector or a suited gapper or a pocket pair go way down. And the value of strong hot and cold hands like broadways, big pairs, and big aces go way up. So that's an adjustment you guys can add. If you're wondering the differences between shallow and deep games. Although given what I've taught you guys and the system that I preach to you guys, you're probably going to be wanting to focus on the deep stacked and minimum of 100 big blind buy-in games rather than playing these short stack games. That's a strategy we could cover in upcoming lessons if you guys are interested in the shallow games and the optimal short stack strategy. I do have a lot of knowledge when it comes to short stacking. I don't do it myself, but I do know how it works and the fundamental techniques involved with it. So if that's something you guys are interested in, you can definitely add it in. Another game breaking? It's a joke. All right, gotta do some work and check the lobby. 20 bigs, we'll just throw them in. Calling with the fives would be pointless. The guy has no money behind. I have no value to try to hit a set, regardless of how bad he is. But given that he's going to be opening a modest range, 50% steal, just taking a good hand and throwing it all in, gambling for the 20 blinds is definitely the way to go. The same can be done with Broadway hands and strong aces. This thing looks like it's breaking too. So we'll avoid that. All right, hopefully in this game. Oh god. I'm sure I'll leave. Okay, button. Any ace is good. Any pair is good. Suited connector is good. 7-8 off and up is good. Suited aces are obviously good if offsuit aces are good. Any suited gapper is good. Any suited 2 gapper is good. King, you could go as wide as king deuce, but to keep you guys out of trouble, say king 9 off and up, queen 8 off, jack 8, 10 7 off. And you can see like we really widen the range a lot when we're on the button. There's nothing wrong with opening upwards of 50% of your hands for you guys who are interested in hand ranges. I would recommend getting Poker Stove, which is available at pokerstove.com. This guy keeps limping in. If he keeps limping in, I'm just going to keep popping. Limps are weak. I can take it down pre-flop. If he's limp calling with a wide range, he's going to miss the flop a lot, and I can win it a lot with the c-bet. Here I'm going to get a little fancy. I'm going to go for a check raise on the 4-6-4. I assume he's going to bet the majority of his range when I check here, and then not really know what to do when he gets check raised. I also have backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and you know, if he has a 6 or a small overpair, there are a lot of overcards that can come that I can use to move him off his hand. And I think if I c-bet there, I'm going to get floated a lot, or bluff raised a lot, or just put in a lot of annoying situations. So rather than letting him use his position to his benefit, I just kind of use it against him, full well expecting that he's going to fire away when I check there. Okay, from the small blind, now you want to tighten up a little bit relative to the button. That's because if it's folded to the small blind and your opponent does decide to play the hand with you, you're going to be playing the hand out of position, which is obviously a big disadvantage. So I would recommend opening ace-8 offsuit, all suited aces, all pairs, although that's not mandatory. If your opponent is the type to give you a lot of trouble and put you in a lot of tough spots, go ahead and just go with 7s plus. All Broadway, as they play really well. You can go lighter with the offsuit connectors if you want, but again, it's not mandatory. Against a weak player, you know, you could open your 4-5 offsuit because he's just going to be folding so much. But against a good player, you don't want to be opening yourself up to difficult situations. And that's a good note, is that when you are looking at raising blind versus blind, it really comes down to who your opponent is in the big blind. Because if he's a bad player, you want to play as many pots with him as possible. So you could open you could open as wide as like 70% of your hands. I've seen some guys, high stakes regs, open 100% of their hands blind versus blind because they just know that they're going to play so much better than their opponent that the fact that their opponent has position doesn't make up for that fact. And they just know they're going to turn a profit. But a safer, more comfortable range is something like 25% of hands, maybe as high as like 35% of hands. This guy finally went for the limp re-raise. I don't really want to just get it in because he is playing kind of a fishy style, so he could have a big hand. So I'll just go with the pot control option and see what happens. If he bets $7 here, he's got it. So that's it for offsuit. For suited connectors, you can go as low as 5-4 suited, but if you want to play it snug, 7-8 suited plus. Gappers, stick with the tight range, 8-10 suited plus. And that should be a pretty good starting ground for what hands to be opening in different positions in a 6-max game. This is, of course, assuming it's been folded to you. If there's a limp ahead, if it's a loose, like really loose passive player, you can then isolate a wider range. If it's a tight passive player, like one of those like 20/5 guys, you actually want to narrow your isolating range because the limper is going to be calling a lot and he actually has decent hands in his range that flop well. So you're going to need hands that can, you know, actually flop some equity rather than hands that just like don't flop shit. Fire C-Bex, the board's paired, and last time we check raised, so we don't want to check raise again. And we're just going to be mixing up our play here. Success. Okay. Sorry, a little OCD there. I can't stand to have typos on here. Opening to 3x from all positions is what you want to start with, and then adjustments would be 2.5x on the button or min on the button. That also depends on who your opponents are. If you have players who like to 3-bet a lot in the blinds, then you want to be opening smaller on the button so that you will be getting a better price when facing a re-raise, and you'll be risking less on your steals. Now, if your opponents call a lot more, then you want to be going with a larger size. If you want to, you know, make that adjustment so you can play a wider range, but you're facing collie players in the blinds, just go with a 2.5x, and you should be fine. Like, there's also nothing wrong with opening to 2.5x from all positions, or going with the 3.5x under the gun, 3x from the hijack, 2.5x from the cutoff, min on the button, or 4 from under the gun, 3.5, 3, and then 2.5. You know, whatever suits your style of play is fine. It's not going to make a huge difference to your bottom line whether you're opening for 2.5x from all positions or graduated sizings based on which position you're in. Your results are more so going to come down to your pre-flop and post-flop play. So people who are, you know, they're sending me messages being like, dude, like I opened 2.5x from all positions, is that okay? They're like, yeah, it's fine. Because at the end of the day, that's not going to make a huge difference to your bottom line. Focus on making good decisions post-flop and staying out of really troublesome spots pre-flop that will then flourish into really bad post-flop spots. You don't want to have those compounding problems per se. And that's what you need to focus on, and then once you get really sharp at that and you learn how to eliminate most of the mistakes that you're making, then you can start to say, okay, well, I think the graduated raise size pre-flop is going to work better for me in my games. But until like you're really confident in your play, pre and post, you're not going to know why one option would be better than the other. So there's really just like no point in even thinking about it. Hit me with the hero Cobra. I'm just betting here to get him off like king high, maybe ace high, maybe a pair of twos. Pwned. Good play, good play. What else? What else do people deal with a lot of in 6-max play? Okay, we'll talk a little bit about 3-betting. Okay, for which hand you should 3-bet, I recommend a value range. So 3-bet hands you are comfortable getting all in with, you get 4-bet. And I would honestly just start with that. Obviously, if you watch poker videos, you've seen a lot of 3-betting. People have preached that 3-betting is awesome and that you can make a lot of money by 3-betting. But you need to know how to play well in 3-bet pots, which is a lot harder to learn how to do than how to play in single-raised pots. So to avoid that whole difficult area of the game, I would recommend just sticking with a value 3-bet range where you 3-bet, and if you get 4-bet, you can get all in, and if you 3-bet and your opponent calls and you flop top pair and over pair, you can be totally comfortable just trying to find a way to get all the money, and whether it's betting or, well, most likely it's going to be by betting or 3-betting the flop if you get re-raised. Here's an example, ace jack. If I get 4-bet by this guy, especially since he's playing pretty tight, I'm not going to be happy getting all in. So I'm just going to call instead of 3-betting and playing a pot control style of play. And I think with hands like ace jack, ace 10, and against some opponents, ace queen even, and king queen, this is the ideal way to play the hand. I'm just going to check call down. On the river, I don't know if I'll still want to call because this guy's pretty nitty. But there you go. He checked that. Let me know that my hand's probably good. And hopefully he has like a king queen or an ace 10 he can call me with. And if not, I'll take the pot down. And you see, if I had king queen there, I would have done the same thing. I check called the flop because I had a piece and I'm ahead of his c-betting range. And then when he checks back the turn, I can just kind of take the pot away. And so I'm like floating with the best hand when I do that. Now we're talking about playing solid, so I'm not going to throw the squeeze on, even though that's a pretty good spot for it. Here, I don't mind getting all in for 40 big blinds, especially against the short stacker. I would really like to just get all in against SR Fish, so I'm going to 3-bet. And if the first guy 4-bets, I'll be getting a really good price. And the fish, like, I could just have him crushed here. So I'm really happy to get this in. And since we're not deep stacked, the idea of playing multi-way isn't as appealing because that suitedness value goes down significantly due to the fact that we're not deep stacked. So that's a situation where, well, the optimal play in a deep stack game would be to call. When you're playing in a shallower game, the optimal play now becomes to re-raise and just try to get the money and gamble it up. So hands that we're comfortable getting it in if we get 4-bet are generally just jacks plus ace king. Occasionally nines plus and ace queen suited, but that would be against a looser, more wild opponent, someone playing like 30-24 or something like that. And now you also don't have to always 3-bet these hands. Like, let's say a really tight player opens from under the gun, someone playing like 19-15, then the best play would probably be to flat these hands, because facing such a tight opening range, if you get 4-bet by that guy in that position, you're not going to be comfortable getting all in with the hand. So that would be a time where you would maybe prefer to flat with hands like ace king. And are these jacks or jack 5? Nice, they're jacks. I was checking the river anyway, even though I timed out there, because I assumed that the dude was pot controlling and that he would call. I'm kind of surprised that he had that hand, but whatever, no biggie. Here, I don't know enough about this guy. I want to just get it all in. So I'm going to call and just play it by ear. I think he's been playing on the tighter side so far, so I don't think 4-betting calling off would lead to a good situation. Checks back. I'm probably going to check call 1-bet. The guy could be pot controlling with a king. He could have queens, or he could be giving up. But I think if he bets twice after checking back the flop, then he was definitely pot controlling a king, and I would be giving up a good amount of value by calling on the end. Cool. I'll take it down. He had ace jack. So betting the turn would have gotten me no additional value. 4-betting pre-flop would have just led to him folding his hand and me not getting max value. And as we can see, since he was willing to stab the turn but gave up on the river, my plan of calling 1-bet was perfect, and a plan of calling 2-bets probably would have been bad. Here with 7-6 suited, I would love to peel, but again, we're not really deep stacked enough for that to be a profitable play, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold. And that's a pretty good flop for ace 5. And this time, if the guy limp raises me, I'm probably getting it in his face. Got it. He wants to take the lead. All right, I'll just let him bet away. This one's close on the river. The guy could have an ace that he could call with. If I check, I induce value from single heart hands that could turn him into a bluff. But I just don't think this guy is that aggressive. I know that he's a regular, so I don't think he's going to be bluffing if I check there. He's not dumb enough to fall for that trap. So I think going for the thin value bet there was better. If he has an ace that he pot controlled the flop, he can definitely call me there. And here I just really think I have the best hand when the guy gives up after betting twice, so I definitely have to value bet. I'd probably value bet as thin as like ace 10, maybe ace 8 there. Okay, and defending 3-bets, OP, don't do it. Playing 3-bet pots out of position is extremely difficult and unprofitable for the most part, so if you open and you get 3-bet, don't really ever worry about calling. If you have a hand that's good enough to, which I know goes against what I said because I just had jacks there, but oh, that was a very strong hand. Generally, you should be 4-betting or folding, although if you have a hand that you feel is too good to fold, but not good enough to 4-bet and get all in with, then in those cases you can call. But you don't want to be calling 3-bets out of position with hands like 8-7 suited, King 10 suited, pocket 4s. shit like that. Like if you have those hands, you just want to fold them. Let's let this guy have this one. He's planning on an elaborate float steal, but he's really tight. Oh, the stats are backwards. Never mind. He's really loose. And Casalpa was really tight, so that was good that I didn't just go for it with the jacks. And then in position, that's the flop, top pair, strong drops. So the hands that you want to defend in position are hands like King Queen suited, King Jack suited, Ace Queen, definitely Ace Queen suited, Ace Jack suited. Against some guys, King Queen. Against some guys, King Jack. Against some guys, maybe even a King 10. And the deeper you get, the wider you can defend. So for 100 big blinds, Queen Jack suited, Jack 10 suited are generally mandatory defense. As you get deeper, hands like 8-9 suited, 7-8 suited, even like 6-8 or 5-8 suited can become defendable because your positional advantage gets so much greater and you are going to have so much more value in playing in position, being able to take away pots, and your implied odds, if you do make some sort of sneaky disguise hand, are huge. The other hands that you want to defend with in terms of pairs would be the ones that you don't want to 4-bet get it in with, but that you feel are too strong to fold. I wouldn't really recommend defending like anything worse than 7s, and in a lot of cases, hands like 8s, 9s, and against the right players, 10s and even jacks could be folded. Obviously, the deeper you are, the more they become a call because you get better odds to hit your set, and the shallower you are. If you're up against a really tight player, they become more folds because you don't have any implied odds. But as you get like really shallow, you can't fold them because the risk is just so small. And if they could ever have a worse pair than you, then you need to be getting in with those hands. But, yeah, I think that about covers it for the notes that I wanted to make. So we'll just shoot for another like 10 minutes, and then call it a video after that. I think these are some pretty strong guidelines that if you implement, you're definitely not going to be. It's not just bad, just in case he has like pocket 6s or something that he might want to fold. I don't think this bluff works that often, but it doesn't need to work that often to be profitable either. Remember that, just because you got caught bluffing doesn't mean it was a bad bluff, and if you are never getting caught bluffing, it just means you aren't bluffing enough. So it's good to get caught bluffing sometimes. It means you're playing well, as long as you're not getting caught all the time, and as long as it's not like your massive bluffs that are getting snapped off. It means you're playing well, it means you're mixing it up, and it also means that you're getting good advertising so that people know that, well, sometimes you don't have it, which means we'll bet here in case he has missed spades, but if he has a 9, he's probably going to call. He doesn't have a king. Yeah, if you're never getting caught bluffing, then people will always assume you have it when you bet, and then if they're smart, they won't give you action, and you won't get paid off on your hands. So showing that you're capable of betting with nothing pays off in the fact that you can get called when you do have it, because people will be asking themselves, well, does he have it this time or does he not? I know he's capable of bluffing, so maybe he's bluffing this time. I'll give it a call. If you're too obviously tight and you obviously never bluff, then people aren't going to give you action. Likewise, if you're clearly a maniac and you bluff all the time, people are never going to fold to you. So you need to find that nice balance in between. Yeah, I didn't really love betting this flop because I didn't want to get check raised. But if he check raises me, I could be drawing close to dead. So even though I'm getting a nice price, I just don't see enough positive things coming out of this hand to warrant healing and continuing in the hand. Checking back was definitely an option there. And then calling the turn and evaluating the river. There were just a lot of like gut shot cards that could come, or spades. Checking back's probably better just because I can turn it back to a flush draw. And then be really happy continuing with the hand. And possibly get paid a lot if I hit a runner and he flops something strong. As you can see, like, you know, everybody makes mistakes. And it's not so much about worrying about whether or not you made a mistake. It's about taking the time after your session to look back at the hands that you wonder about, that you have questions, that maybe you struggled with, looking at them again, and then trying to learn where you went wrong, if you went wrong. Also, just because a play didn't work doesn't mean it was a bad play. So the key is just being willing to look back at your hands, evaluate your play, ask questions, share your hands with friends so you can get an unbiased opinion on the hand, and then be willing to accept criticism. The criticism is constructive, and in the long run, it's going to lead to you becoming a better player. Whereas if you're closed-minded and you aren't willing to learn from your mistakes, then you're never going to get better. And you're going to be stuck in a rut, wherever your rut is, whatever one it is. Ooh, sneaky play with the aces. This guy's real bad. This guy is really bad. And that's what it's all about, is being willing to admit that you make mistakes and trying your best to learn from those mistakes so that you can stop making those mistakes in the future. If you deny the mistakes, or if you never even take the time to look back at the mistakes, you will keep making the same mistakes. And it will prevent you from moving up or making good bank at your current limit. Whatever your goals are, if you're not willing to accept criticism, work on improving, you're just going to remain where you are. Almost all of the best players in the world at some point or another had a coach, or at least they had someone that they discussed hands with, and that's how they got better. No one did it on their own. Even Tom Dwan had David Raptor Benefield living with him, and I'm sure they were talking lots of strategy. I'm sure there were other players he was talking strategy with, and that's how he worked his way up there. He didn't just magically figure it all out himself and become the best. So that turn raise was a free showdown raise. I raised the turn so that I could check back the river, but he doesn't want to let me do that. And that jack makes some two pairs, makes some straights. I'll call just in case he has some queen, but I think he probably... pot odds. I only had to be there, right there, 1 out of 3 times. And the turn top air is probably good at least that often, so that's an example where even if I called and was wrong, it probably isn't a bad call because it doesn't have to be right all of the time to be a good call. And hopefully you just re-raise so we can just get it all in at the end of the bid. No action. I'm going to try to take my 3s to showdown here against this guy. Don't want to get check raised. He can't call me with ace high, but he can bet it on the turn. Jack. 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 Send it. It doesn't want to load. Ace king. Yeah, so. Plan worked to perfection. Okay, gonna raise our fish friend. Same thing, it's just a free showdown raise. If he has a flush draw, I want to charge him. I don't want to let him see the river for free. Likewise, if he has some random overcards, I don't want to let him have 9-1 on his money. And that could be bad for me, but I'll call. And if he checks the river, cool, or if he bets real small, cool. But if he bets anything significant, I'm gonna give him credit for having that king. But he didn't bet, even though he had the king. I never know what these guys are thinking or why they're doing what they're doing. The turn re-raise was very suspicious, and in truth, I probably should have just folded right there. But we wanted to see his hand. For your guys' learning purposes, we want that free information. Well, I'll pay €2 for you guys to learn that when a fish min clicks you on the turn, he probably has a good hand. So that you guys can learn from my mistake and not make that mistake when you guys play. Seems worth it. My €2 for you guys to save way more than €2 over the long run. I think it's a fair trade. Okay, so I guess I'll just sit out on back game now. So, 3-ball, corner pocket. Never. You guys ever notice how, like, when you turn a draw, you just never hit it on the river? It's the worst. Well, yeah. I guess I could have taken him off his hand, but I didn't realize he was going to be defending his small blind that wide. I would have thought he was playing bigger cards like earlier when he had King 10 suited. But whatever, these things happen. All good fun. Okay, so as always, please leave your comments on the video thread, comment section of the video. Obviously, where else would you put comments? And if you have any video requests, please send them to evan@gripst.com so that I can make my upcoming videos ones that you guys are actually interested in watching and not ones that will serve you no benefit and will be a waste of your time. Well, it's never a waste, but I'd like to help you guys spend your training time optimally and getting the most out of every minute that you spend educating yourself. So I'm really interested in making relevant content for you guys, not irrelevant content, so please send your video requests to evan@gripst.com. And also, yeah, if you want rake back as well, you can send rake back requests to evan@gripst.com. I've recently partnered up with some really big players in the rakeback industry, so we have great deals on all networks. Just keep in mind that if you already have an account on a poker site, you are not allowed to open another one. So if you want rakeback where you currently play, that might be difficult. However, if you're willing to try another network, then setting you up with a great deal would be no problem. Alright, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This has been Evan for Grips.com. Now go out there and get stacking.